Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing something a little differently. I'm going to have a series of videos that are showing you how to practice effectively. And the purpose of this is to kind of demonstrate how your intention can influence how effective your practice is. Now what this is going to be is three different types of practice when it comes to drawing. But the first type of practice I'm going to talk about is called innate practice. And this mostly just has to do with what you do naturally. The second type of practice would be called inspired practice. And this is going to be influenced by the things that are around you or things that you hear. And the third type of practice is more developmental practice. And this is much more intentional and has more to do with purpose and direction. So we'll move on to this. So the first type of practice, as I said, innate practice. And innate practice is what you are good at naturally, or what you naturally enjoy doing. Now what I'm talking about is when you pull out your sketchbook, what do you naturally want to do? And I misspelled that. You aren't necessarily trying to improve on your skills. I want to emphasize you aren't necessarily trying to improve on your skills, but you are repeatedly doing the things that give you a sense of accomplishment or satisfaction. So if you open up your sketchbook and you like to draw anime characters, or you open up your sketchbook and you like to draw trees, that is innate practice. It's mostly just what you enjoy doing. So this practice has no rigid set of goals, but improves your ability, and I stress, improves your ability through consistency over time. So basically, you're just constantly doing the things that give you satisfaction or things that you just are naturally good at. And as you do that over time, repeatedly, that helps to improve your abilities. So the question a lot of times you ask is like, how do I get better at drawing? What do I need to do to get better at drawing? And a lot of you probably hear people say, practice, practice, practice. Now, for some of you, that may not hold a lot of meaning because you don't know what to practice. This is exactly what that means. When people say, just practice, 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 it means to draw every day because it gives you, because it's what you enjoy or what you're inherently good at. So if you ask your teacher or you ask an adult, hey, who draws a lot, and you say, hey, what do I need to do to get better at drawing? And they just say, practice every day. This is exactly what they're talking about. Draw something, draw anything. It doesn't even matter. It can be doodles, it can be scribbles, it can be whatever you want it to be. That's exactly what that means. But inspired practice, the way I like to define it, is rapid bursts of learning through observation and enthusiasm. Now, I do a lot of private lessons with kids, and this is what I tell them to do. It's find ways to inspire yourself. And you can choose how you're inspired too. But first thing I want to talk about, it's essentially what you see, hear, or even touch, which inspires you to create something. Use the things that are around you in order to have inspired practice. While this type of practice is one of the best motivators in creating art, any kind of art, it can also prove to burn you out the quickest. And the reason why that is because it's hard to maintain. You can be inspired by something in the moment, but then trying to maintain that can be very, very difficult. So, like I said, you want to keep it fresh and change it up from time to time. Now, that can look like a whole bunch of different things. Some examples for you. You can get how-to drawing books, so like how to draw animals, how to draw cars, how to draw these kind of things, because there's so many different ways that you can inspire yourself in improving your drawing. So you can also just draw what you see. You can sit out in a park, you can go to a Old Town, you can go to a whole bunch of different places and draw what's around you. And always choose something different. You can draw the road, you can draw the tree, you can draw the puppy you see. And as weird as it may be, you can draw the people around you. It's ways of keeping that inspired practice kind of living and flowing through you. So those are just some examples. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can keep the inspired practice alive and fresh inside of your brain. So inspired practice can also be cultivated by new experiences and information. One thing I tell a whole bunch of people, since I work part-time at an art store, I have so many tools available to me. And it's always fun for people to come in who are looking to try to get better at something that they're already good at, but they don't know where to start. And I can introduce them to so many different tools, and it opens up a whole new world for them. It compels you to create your work and continue to work on your craft hours past your bedtime. That's what inspired practice kind of does for you. It gives you a new set of inspiration and really forces you to want to work on the thing that you want to work. You can choose what inspires you. So it doesn't have to be something that like, oh, by happenstance, I got to see this thing and that inspired me. You can actually choose what inspires you. And some examples are, that's why schools are so great, is because they offer these really cool opportunities. So a museum field trip, so a trip to the Denver Art Museum, or a concert, like a school concert, or going to something artistic outside of your community. The reason why schools offer these kind of opportunities for you guys is it is inspired practice. Practice doesn't always have to be physically doing something. You don't always have to be drawing for it to be practice. You can be observing things. You can be going out and doing things. That is a form of inspired practice. It's why we encourage students to go to museums, because by going to a museum, you are having an inspired practice moment because you're experiencing new things that gives you new information that drives you into a new inspirational world. And the third type of practice would be called developmental practice. Now, this one, I define it as an intentional acquired skill and developmental progress. So it's the easiest type of practice to assign tasks to and to give purpose or direction, because you want to get better at something. You want to improve upon this certain skill, and you're willing to do the things that are necessary in order to get better at that. So another thing to stress, it isn't always fun, and it's often the most frustrating, because you're not just doing the fun part, you're doing the very mechanical parts of it. And it's often repetition of one thing over and over and over and over again until you have gotten better at it, or you've gotten to a point where you're ready to move on to the next thing. This takes a lot of patience, because you have to be willing to accept a bunch of criticism. You have to be willing to fail at a bunch of things. You have to be willing to accept the fact that maybe I'm not doing something correctly and I need to readdress this, whatever this thing is that you're working on. So even though it's not always the most fun, it's, in my opinion, the most constructive, because it gives you the best information on where you are with a certain skill. So ways to improve on this is seeking out art classes, whether it's in school or private. A lot of us will take art. We'll have an art class in school, but then we have elective art classes that you choose. And by choosing those kind of art classes, that is a developmental practice. Another really important thing is, accepting the constructive criticism, teaching yourself a very specific skill, and being willing to accept a criticism from the person who's teaching you is one of the most important things that you can do in the developmental practice stage of things. And then one of the last part of the developmental practice is knowing where to identify where your improvements are needed, and doing what's necessary in order to get better better at those skills, even if they seem boring. So that's those 3 stages of practice that I like to lay out for students that I work with in private, some group lessons. But for this week, here's what's to come. For the next few videos this week, I'm going to be doing some videos on the different types of exercises that you can do to help with these 3 different types of practices, and they're going to be kind of specific. You can always do what you think works best for you, but these videos will help get you started in figuring out how to really utilize these practices effectively. And like I said in the beginning of the video, you don't have to master one type of practice in order to progress to the next. So for innate practice, you don't have to get perfect at that in order to go to the next type of practice. These don't sit on tiers. You don't have innate practice and then developmental practice over here. They all sit on the same level. It just depends on what you're wanting to get out of the practice. So that's really it for today. I know this was more of a tutorial on things, and it was a really quick run through. But we are going to be I am going to be putting out some videos that are going to give you some like I said before, give you some really specific exercises you can do in order to have these practices in your life. And I'm going to be talking specifically about intention and how you can't just do these things passively. You have to be very intent on doing this practice in order for you to get better at what you're doing. So that's all I've got for today. I'm going to be recording another video for tomorrow and try to get that out to you guys pretty early. But really focus on right now the information, and then when you watch the next video, follow along with what I'm doing and draw what I'm telling you to draw, and then use that as a way to progress into what we're doing after that. So anyways, thanks guys.